Okay, everyone. Let's see. So welcome to the 2021 Earth Day meeting of the Green New York / Executive Order 4 Interagency Committee. So we're having our 2021 meeting today. The agenda is up on, well, not the screen, but hopefully you guys everyone can see this on their computer or their device that they're joining from. We'll just do some really quick introductions. So if you are on the Interagency Committee, actually as your agency's designee, if you are the voting member, then you can go ahead and unmute, and you could keep it unmuted unless, you know, there's feedback or whatever, but hopefully it won't be a problem. But so during the course of the meeting, the voting members will have to indicate if they are in favor of something or if they're against something occasionally. So you guys can leave it unmuted or mute back and forth, however you want to do it. But we'll just do a quick round of introductions. And some agencies have multiple people here. There are some agencies that have a designee and an alternate, or other people who are just joining the meeting to maybe give a report or even just watch. So in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask for the designees, i.e. the voting members. So we'll just go around. My name is Darren DeRocha. I'm in the counsel's office at OGS, and I'm the co-chair of the OGS designee for the Interagency Committee, and I co-chair the committee with the designee from DEC, who's Brendan Woodruff. Brendan, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. This is Brendan Woodruff. I'm the Director of Sustainability at New York State DEC, and I am a co-chair of the Executive Order 4 Interagency Committee here with Darren. And I just, before we get started today, want to say thank you to everybody at the agencies that's done work on what we're presenting today. There's been a lot that has gone into making today possible, and I just want to say thank you right off the bat.
All right. Thanks, Brendan. Your connection, we can hear you, but sometimes it goes in and out a little bit. So I don't know if you're speaking into a speaker or what, but just be a little cognizant of that if you could. So the rest of the interagency committee members, let's see, do we have anyone from EFC on the line? Is Brian's on here, right?
Hi, Darren. Yep, Brian Hahn here.
All right, thank you. The voting member from EFC. Is there anyone from ESD on the line?
Good afternoon, John G. representing ESD.
Thank you, John. Is there anyone from DOT on the line? I didn't see that.
Melissa Rodriguez from DOT.
Oh, thank you, Melissa. Are you the voting member today?
Don't think so, but.
Well, unless Matthew Haas joins, you can represent DOT. You're the DOT person on here today. Okay. Okay, anyone from NYSERDA?
Yes, Ryan Morris here.
Do we have Heather Saunders?
I did talk to her this morning. She is planning to attend.
Okay. And anyone from DASNY?
Yeah. Hi, this is Jody Smits-Anderson representing DASNY.
Thank you, Jody. Is there anyone from NYPA?
Yes, this is Jane King representing NYPA.
Thank you, Carrie Jane. Anyone from Department of Health? Jessica De Palma or anyone else? No?
Carla Osborne here.
Oh,
Here for
great.
Jeff.
Oh, thank you. And anyone from Division of Budget?
This is Emma Davis.
What's that? I didn't hear.
This is Emma Davis from the Division of the Budget.
Thank you, Emma.
Thanks, Darren.
All right, perfect. Okay. All right, so let's get into the agenda. So the first thing on the agenda, as we always do, is we allot some time for public comment. So I know we have a couple of folks who have expressed interest to give some comments. I ask that anyone who is commenting in the interest of time, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. And so with that, let's see. Margaret, why don't you tell me who is going to speak and who wants to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Darren. We have Lane Bushwinder from ACC on the line. Lane, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Good afternoon and happy Earth Day, everyone. Thank you to the members of the committee for the opportunity to comment on the tentatively approved specifications for apparel and textile materials. My name is Lane Hochschwender, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the American Chemistry Council Center for Biocide Chemistries, who represents companies that manufacture and formulate antimicrobial pesticides. We previously submitted written comments requesting that the committee remove the ban on antimicrobials and anti-odor agents from the specification. And at a minimum, we would urge the committee to at least table this specification for the future to allow for more time to provide the data requested by members of this committee. Antimicrobials are a critical application for textiles, and they are incorporated into the textile for one of two reasons. First, they're used as a material preservative to help prevent bacteria from growing on a fabric surface and breaking down the product. This helps products last longer and contributes to sustainability. So without antimicrobials, apparel and textiles would need to be replaced and purchased more often. Secondly, a more innovative application of antimicrobials to textiles includes their use to actually kill bacteria and pathogens when they come into contact with the material. So, for example, there are some companies that are actually using antimicrobials as an additive for textiles to help fight COVID. It's our understanding that the motivation for banning apparel with antimicrobials is because of three primary concerns. First is the potential environmental exposures, both when considering the potential leaching of these chemicals into water during the wash cycle, as well as during the manufacturing process. Second is related to the potential impacts on the carbon footprint during manufacturing of the textiles. And lastly is recyclability. So first off, I did want to note that antimicrobials must be registered with the EPA in order to be sold for any particular use. And the registration process includes a rigorous scientific evaluation by EPA. So if any antimicrobial product is registered for use in textiles, EPA will have conducted an assessment on any potential human health and environmental risks associated with that use. And during this evaluation process, if the agency has any reason to believe that these chemicals would pose an unreasonable risk to humans or the environment, they will not go to market. And we recognize the interest in better understanding both the carbon footprint and the recyclability implications here, but we believe that more time is needed to appropriately collect information on this. When we're thinking about the carbon footprint, truth be told, this really isn't about the antimicrobial. In fact, the chemicals really shouldn't provide any additional impact in this space. And then on recyclability, we don't have specific data on this. However, we are fairly confident that the amount of antimicrobial that ends up in the textile product is nominal as compared to other chemical additives such as dyes. And so this will not impact recyclability. So I know that was a lot very quickly, but I really appreciate your time and consideration of my comments today. And as I am new to this, I'm not sure if you allow the time for it, but I would be happy to address any questions.
All right. Margaret, who's the next speaker?
That was all from ACC, Darren.
Oh, okay. Interagency committee members, do you have any questions for the presenter before? We are going to, of course, have a presentation when that spec comes up later, but do you have any questions for the commenter? All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Lane.
Thank you, Darren.
All right. Okay, so is there anyone else that's on the WebEx that is wanting to comment during the public comment period? All right. Okay, great. We might actually stick to these times. So now we'll go into the subcommittee reports. So first is the Operations and Engagement Subcommittee. It's co-chaired by Jody Smith-Anderson from DASNY and Ryan Torres from the Battery Park City Authority. I'm not sure who's going to speak, but go ahead. Jody.
Yeah, I'll be speaking. This is Jody Smith-Anderson from DASNY. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present an update. Ryan is also present, and we talked a little bit about comments before this. The thing that's most important regarding actions right now and over the past year is training for all of the people working on sustainability, and training in a way that will increase not only the connection to the ultimate goals of sustainability and Green New York, but start to provide the tools and the networking connections in order to receive information of their own volition in the work. So we're very close to announcing a training process that will share information about work to date, celebrate the work that's been done to date, and present those tools and help people connect to how to report in order to fulfill the goals of the report to the governor's office each year. That's very exciting work. That's being done with our interagency group that is not being sourced by an outside entity. It is a very low cost approach, which was a challenge and a pleasure to tackle. We've also been doing ongoing, and Brendan has really been the lead in this, lunchtime learning sessions, which are focused on providing information for individuals to improve the work that they do and their own lives as far as sustainability. This level of connectivity to information and examples of how to do things better is actually creating the groundswell of attention that is needed in order to have systemic sustaining change. So those have been very successful and well trafficked, a lot of attendees to those sessions. I think that is, there was one other thing I was going to mention, and of course I didn't write it down. So Brendan, you're on the call, and Ryan, if you want to fill in what I forgot, I think we have another minute. If not, that's fine.
Yeah, thanks, Jody. This is Brendan. Yeah, I just wanted to first off say thank you for all the work you've put into the training program that we're getting ready to launch. It's amazing that that we're about to launch this and really get into something that we haven't done before and engage people on a really deeper level. So I thank you for that. A couple other things that have been going on under that subcommittee is we do have a refrigerant management working group that is meeting with operations folks and planners from across different agencies and SUNY schools to teach them how to better manage their refrigerants. And we've had some really good progress on that as well.
All right, excellent. If that's it, we can move on to the reporting subcommittee. Frank, you can introduce yourself and go ahead and give us a brief update.
Hello, everyone. Darren, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Great, thanks. My name is Frank Ciampa. I'm the program manager for policy development at NYSERDA and one of the chairs of the reporting subcommittee of the Green New York Council. I'm happy to announce that today, Earth Day, we are publishing the 9th progress report on the State of New York Green Procurement and Agency Sustainability Report. This is going to highlight a lot of the progress that agencies have been making. State government is really leading the way in a lot of this transition to a cleaner, greener, more decarbonized state of operations for New York government. And we're happy to put out this report showing how our operations in state government are improving. It showcases some case studies of highlights and project examples, and also rolls up a number of key performance metrics showcasing the progress that we've made to date. So we're going to continue to work with state agencies on improving these metrics, but we're happy to announce the launch of this report today.
Great. Thank you very much, Frank. The next report is from not a subcommittee, but a report on green procurement in general from Todd Gardner. Go ahead, Todd, if you're on. My guess is Todd is on, and he is having some issues because I see him muting and unmuting. All right, Todd, why don't you, I don't know, maybe you need to shut this and join again or something. But in the meantime, we will, yeah, Todd just dropped. Okay, we'll come back to that, Todd's report. In the meantime, Brendan, why don't you walk us through the ninth progress report, Greening New York State, and present it to the committee.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. And first off, I just want to say a big thank you to everybody who helped make this report possible. This is really a team effort that cuts across agencies. We have experts from multiple different agencies and authorities that put together and write sections for us, that cleanse the data, that help us with the reporting, help us make sure we're asking the right questions, and of course, documenting the projects and getting pictures and things for us. So, you know, when we talk about we're trying to build a silo-busting structure that's working across agencies and bringing together all of our expertise to solve these complex problems, this report is a perfect example of how we're doing that. And if you can just scroll down a little bit to the executive summary page there, I want to highlight a couple of the things that we have going here. And one of the things that we've also done this year is we've revamped the format of the report to make it a little bit more user-friendly, a little more readable. Yeah, that's a good page. To make it so that it really kind of pops out and is more accessible to more people. So a couple highlights from the report this year. We're reporting a 90% overall state agency recycling rate, which is great. In addition, if we want to get into some fun numbers here, state agencies recycle over 1 million tons of materials. That's over 4,500 times the weight of the Statute of Liberty. In addition, in fiscal year 1920, New York State's zero-emission vehicle fleet traveled 4.4 million miles, and that's equivalent to traveling the Erie Canal more than 12,000 times. We also had a record $212 million spent on green products this year. And in addition, we have more agencies than ever that have sustainability teams and that are engaging their staff and their executives on how their agencies can go green. A couple other things that we did this year that are in the report here. We also hosted our largest ever virtual Green New York Forum this year. We had over 150 people from various agencies attend that training and learning session to learn more about how they can make their agencies more sustainable. And I just want to go through here a couple of the projects and just highlight the breadth and depth of what state agencies are doing. Because there's no such thing as a bad project, I like to say. Everything from small projects to the large ones add up to these numbers that we see here. And it's pretty incredible when you start to look at how these projects take place, what they add up to, and how we get to where we are. So a couple projects just to highlight here. For example, we've got one, SUNY Maritime College. They put new recycling receptacles in their dorms with signage, and they've seen an increase in their recycling rate, decrease in waste. We've got the Battery Park City Authority has a great dog waste composting program. We have the impressive Parks Solar program, including their new microgrid system up at Grants Cottage, which they just cut the ribbon on this week. You've got the Borough of Manhattan Community College, which is using less hazardous chemicals in their labs. They did an assessment and figured out how they can get away from some of the more hazardous substances. The Department of Transportation has done fantastic work this year. And one of the projects that we're proud of seeing is their new Ithaca residency has both solar power for energy and geothermal for heating and cooling. In addition, you've got the University at Albany, which is providing universal access to the Capital Region's bike share system for sustainable transportation options for students and staff. You have ORDA installing new EV chargers at Gore, Whiteface, and Mount Van Hovenberg. You've got the Department of Labor requiring LED lighting in all of their new leases. You've got DOT testing new topsoil alternatives to help make sure that native species perform better and have a better chance to grow over their invasive counterparts when they're doing kind of roadside cutting and things like that. You've got SUNY Potsdam going through and doing comprehensive repairs on water leaks. You've got Medgar Evers College replacing a concrete area with open landscaping, and the list goes on and on and on. So I just wanted to highlight a couple of the projects here that we've seen throughout this report to show you kind of the breadth and the depth of what all these state agencies are doing when we show you these top line numbers. So we're really proud of this report. We're proud of all the work that has gone into it, both putting it together and the folks that are doing the work on the ground. So a big thank you to everybody who's been a part of this. We couldn't do it without you.
That's great. Thank you, Brendan. So are there any questions or discussion, comments, anything from committee members? Okay. Well, then if not, then I'll just ask, is there a motion to approve the 9th progress report entitled Greening New York State and post it publicly and issue it to the governor and the legislature pursuant to Executive Order 4? Is there a motion?
Hi, this is Jody. I'd like to make that motion.
Thanks, Jody. Is there a second?
John G. Seconds.
Thanks. Perfect. Thank you. So I'll ask the members when we go through this voting, when I say all in favor, I'm just going to say, please unmute and just say aye or yes. So all committee members in favor, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Are there any opposed? Okay, thanks. So that motion carries, and the 9th progress report will be posted and made publicly available directly after this meeting. Thanks very much. I appreciate that, members. Okay, so I think Todd is working now, so we'll jump back to Todd's green procurement report. Go ahead, Todd. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, perfectly.
Great. So, yeah, this is Todd Gardner, and I work for OGS Procurement Services, where I lead the Sustainability and Special Projects team. So for my update, in fiscal year 2019 to 20, green spending was estimated to be about $212 million, as mentioned by Brendan. And this total is a combination of agency-reported spend that was done through the Green New York reporting process and also spend through OGS centralized contracts. Overall, agencies reported spending about half of the amount, about a little over $100 million. And that amount has steadily increased over the last few years. And then the amount spent through OGS centralized contracts was also about half the amount, a little over $100 million. So for the combined data, the highest areas of spend were for EPEAT certified computers, integrated vegetation management, and the OGS green cleaning program, which together, those three areas accounted for about 80% of the spend. So in fiscal year 19 to 20, we also received 2 awards. One was for the an EP purchasing award, which is our 4th consecutive purchasing award. And we also received an SPLC Outstanding Case Study Award for the use of the Green New York icon. And I'm happy to report that the Green New York icon is now in place on all of our all green contracts on the marketplace. And it's also in place for green products offered by the preferred sources. So that includes the EP lighting contract, EP cleaning contract, both of our recycled copy paper contracts, and also the green products offered by Corecraft, NYSPSP, and NYSID. And so finally, I'd like to wrap up with a quick contract update. In fiscal year 19 to 20, OGS put out new contracts for community solar and a compostable cafeteria tray contract. And we're currently wrapping up a new contract for motor oil and hydraulic oil, which will contain recycled products. And we're starting to work on replacing our green cleaning contracts. So that concludes my update, and I'll hand it back to you, Darren.
Thank you very much, Todd. I appreciate it. I'm glad you could get the audio working. Let's see. All right, so moving to the next.
Now, but I will call him as soon as this is over.
Commissioner, you're not muted, just so you know. Let's move into the next part of the agenda, which is the review of tentatively approved specifications, which have been previously posted for public comment, and the committee is going to consider those for final approval. So the first tentatively approved specification we'll discuss is garment cleaning, and Brendan is going to walk us through that. Go ahead, Brendan. Thanks.
Sure. So this one, like the other three, were put out for public comment. We did not receive any substantive comments on the garment cleaning spec. We did receive a number of comments in support of the spec, of adopting it as is, from environmental groups. So this spec itself, what it does is it's got kind of a hierarchy here. The first thing we do is we ask all affected entities to avoid PERC, or perchloroethylene. I hope I got that right. And from there, there's kind of a hierarchy of alternative cleaning methods that we go through. The first one that we're asking them to look at is professional wet cleaning. The second is professional CO2 cleaning. And the third is looking for a cleaner that uses a New York State DEC approved alternative solvent. So that way they're able to choose, because not every garment cleaner out there has all of these options. Some of them might have one or two or something like that. But we do give them a hierarchy to look through. And then we also ask them to look for ways to reduce waste, and to ask their garment cleaners if they're able to reduce waste further, ensuring that things like thin film plastic garment covers are recycled, and then seeing if there's opportunities for things such as hanger recycling or the use of reusable garment bags.
All right. Okay. Is that it, Brendan?
Yeah, and so with that, I do urge the committee to vote to approve this.
Right. Okay. All right. Perfect. Are there any questions from committee members for Brendan? Okay. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the already tentatively approved garment cleaning specification for final approval. Does anybody want to make that motion?
This is Jody. I will so move.
Thank you, Jody. Does anybody second that?
I'll second that, Darren. It's Heather.
Thank you. Committee members, all in favor of final approval of the garment cleaning specification, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Are there any opposed? Okay, hearing none, the garment cleaning specification is approved, and we will post it to that effect, and it becomes now effective on agencies and authorities. So thank you, members. The next specification to be discussed is the tentatively approved laundry detergent specification. And I believe Melissa Calabria is going to walk us through that.
Yep. Hi, Darren. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So basically the laundry detergent is a sort of companion spec to the apparel spec and the garment cleaning spec. So basically just covers purchasing your concentrates in bulk and meeting the Article 35 environmental conservation law for laundry detergent. And basically it also should meet the Green Seal or UL Eco Logo specifications that are cited in the specification. And it encourages entities to purchase cradle to cradle or USDA bio-based certified laundry detergent. And then we also encourage to have procedures to ensure that staff who are laundering on state facilities only use what they need. So basically the minimum amount to have for it to be effective. And we did receive some comments on the laundry detergent specification. We received one comment pertaining to 1,4-dioxane limits, which we directed to those working on the 1,4-dioxane law. We've decided to, keep the language in there as it is. And then we received a comment regarding reusable packaging, and we don't really have a practice in place for reusable packaging for this, so we recommend to just keep the current packaging language as recyclable or compostable packaging seems to be the most prevalent and accessible for this product. And then also we have a comment about adding US EPA Safer Choice to the certification list, and I believe we're in conversation with EPA regarding the Safer Choice program, so it could potentially be incorporated at a future date, but as of now, it will be left as it is. And based on the comments, we would recommend that the committee move to make the spec, adopt the spec, sorry.
All right. Thank you, Melissa. Do any committee members have any questions for Melissa? All right. So is there a motion to approve the laundry detergent specification for final approval?
Yep, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Brendan. Does anybody want to second that motion?
This is Brian from EFC. I'll second it.
Thanks, Brian. Okay. All right. All in favor, committee members, if you're in favor, please unmute and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks a lot. Is there any opposed? Okay. Hearing none, the laundry detergent specification is approved and for final approval, and now becomes effective for agencies and authorities. So the next specification we're going to discuss is the apparel and textile material specification, and Brendan is going to walk us through that.
Yep, thanks, Darren. So the first thing I want to do is I want to kind of walk through the spec itself again, just to remind everybody about all the different parts of the spec that are in here. So the first thing we ask folks to do is limit the purchasing of apparel and textile materials to just what they need. We also ask them to avoid putting on specific logos that can only be used for certain occasions or giving them away as promotional items, as there were better options for those. We also ask all affected entities to make sure that they do not include cotton sourced from Uzbekistan or Turkmenistan due to slave labor considerations. We do have we have left in the does not contain added antimicrobial or anti-odor agents to the spec that we're presenting to you today, and I'll talk about that in a second. Are not labeled as dry clean only, except for formal law enforcement uniforms where there's no alternatives available. We also then have a number of encouraged specifications, including making sure that they did not contain intentionally added PFCs or PFASs. We make sure that we're encouraging folks to look for recycled content, organic cotton if it's available, a number of different third-party certifications, and then we're also asking folks to look at limiting the amount of packaging that the items come in. We also have some things in here to make it holistic for the use of the apparel itself, to make sure that agencies that are laundering apparel are doing it only with detergents that meet the laundry detergent specification, and making sure that any professional dry cleaning or garment cleaning that needs to be done is done in compliance with the garment cleaning specification itself. We also have an extensive end-of-life handling section in here as well, asking folks to reuse articles of clothing and apparel if they are still in a useful condition. When they're no longer in a useful condition, we're asking them to recycle it as part of the textile recycling program. In addition, we're asking them if they do have formal law enforcement apparel to follow all of their agency procedures, and then seeing if they can reuse that as either kind of maintenance rags or recycling the fabric through textile recycling or something else like that. The same goes for textile materials themselves. And so this is a very holistic specification, and that's one of the large things that we wanted to do, is make sure that this captures all that is going on within the apparel and textile realm. So the one substantive comment that we did receive on this was, as you heard earlier, from the American Chemistry Council Center for Biocide Chemistries, asking that we eliminate or remove the section on having no added antimicrobial and anti-odor agents in it. We are recommending that the committee approve this with that language in it still. The reasons for this are, they actually kind of laid them out as well. We are still concerned about potential environmental exposure, whether it comes out in the wash water or how it leaches potentially onto skin. In addition, we are concerned about the recyclability of these. You know, we don't have a good answer for how much of these chemicals is left in the clothing when it's going to be recycled. And we really don't want to end up in a situation down the road where we find out that we might have to be splitting streams or having anything else happen there that could contaminate that new recycling stream that we're really trying to build up in order to lower the state's carbon footprint. So there are a lot of questions out there in this realm, and because of that, we're thinking that the prudent thing to do is to make sure that agencies are continuing to not purchase clothing that has added antimicrobial or anti-odor agents in them. So with that, I'll hand it back to Darren.
All right, thanks, Brendan. So members, you heard from during the public comment period some comments pertaining to the specification. Brendan just went through it and discussed, reiterated the written comments that we received, which were essentially the same. So I will present you, I'll ask for a motion to approve the specification, but before I do, I will give the committee members an opportunity if anybody thinks that they want to move to table the specification indefinitely. You know, that's always the committee's prerogative. So if there is a motion to that effect, does anybody want to move to table this, take it off the agenda, table it indefinitely, essentially for a year till the next meeting?
I'd like to ask Brendan a question with regard to the feedback from the public comment. Brendan,
yes.
The position they took was substantiated. That basically in all the fabric production processes, antimicrobials are a standard addition to the process, and it's basically an industry-wide practice. How do we get around not doing that? I mean, and the comment also said that although they use the antimicrobial additions, that it's minimal. That it basically it's sort of like a minimization process, but it's designed specifically to extend the shelf life. I'm sorry, this is John G. from EST. And extends the shelf life for the product. So how can we do something that's going to impede what I consider, from what I understand, is an industry-wide standard of getting fabric for our uniforms and our, in our public service roles?
Yeah, so I've got kind of two things on that. And the first is that a lot of these chemistries are newer that are being added. We're focusing on, you're looking at things that are being added. You know, there's a number of different pesticides and other chemicals. And it's kind of, if you look at a lot of the new clothing that's coming out, you'll see tags on them that say either antimicrobial or anti-odor.
Mm-hmm.
When we went through and surveyed state agencies, we could not find any that were purchasing clothing that had these in them. So as far as we know, from everything we've surveyed, these are things that agencies are already not focusing on and purchasing on. So in terms of how widely it is in different different types of clothing, you know, we couldn't find many instances where folks are procuring this type of stuff.
In present time.
In present time, yes.
But we don't. What about the future? I mean, going forward, I'm wondering if we're throwing out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak.
So the other thing I can add to that as well is if there is a specific purpose, like let's say for some reason there was a type of law enforcement uniform where they said we absolutely need this anti-odor additive to it, that is what our form, function, and utility is. The agency does have the ability to say that we need to purchase this clothing and kind of override this spec because its form, function, and utility is we need this added antimicrobial.
Okay, so there is an exemption. There's an exemption feature, so to speak, built into our process already.
Yeah. So basically what we're trying to move to is you have to explain why you want to have that and document your exemption as opposed to just, you know, going out and purchasing anything right away. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That makes as long as there's some sort of exemption or out clause, if you will, because like I said, I'm looking forward down the road, and if fabric in general, if the fabric industry in general comes out with a uniform process that produces all fabrics that have antimicrobials in them going forward, then even though we presently buy uniforms that are not, any future uniforms might wind up with that fabric already there. It might be basically on the shelf and there's nothing else available, so now we have to basically back up and punt. But that's as long as there's an out clause for that. I got to understand that. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
No problem.
John, so I'll just add that. So in Executive Order 4 itself, basically these specifications, once approved and made final, are binding on agencies and authorities. However, there are three clauses which are basically exemptions, for lack of a better word, that if the specification doesn't meet an agency's form, function, or utility, basically it doesn't meet their needs, they can document that in the procurement record and they can buy something else.
Okay.
If the commodity that the specification is about creates a price differential that is unreasonable, then you can document that and you could buy something that doesn't meet the specification. And the third is if it's a health safety issue or some other emergency. So so that's like standard language that's right in the executive order. Yep. And the other thing I would say is that, when these specs are developed, and this goes for all of them, this is how we generally differentiate between what's required and what's encouraged. So a lot of times you see a spec that might have requirement language at the same time as other language that's just an encouragement. And often that's because if the market isn't robust enough to support that language. So let's say there wasn't clothing available really enough. There wasn't enough of a market of clothing that didn't have anti-odor agents in it, like you're referring to, then we would have perhaps just encouraged that to go seek that out. But if the market's not robust enough, then we usually will make that an encouragement. If it's a requirement, then drafters of the specification have, as part of their research, made sure that there's a robust enough market out there that agencies could easily find the products that meet that spec.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. So the first thing I will ask is, does anybody, well, first of all, are there any other questions for Brendan? Okay, so I'm going to give the opportunity to any agency member who wants to make a motion to table the specification until next year. And if I don't hear that motion, then we'll ask for another motion to approve it. But first, does anybody want to make a motion to delay the specification for a year? Okay. Don't hear one. So I'll now give the opportunity. Does anybody want to make a motion to approve the apparel and textile materials specification?
This is Jody. I move to approve the specification.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jody. Does anybody want to second that motion?
This is John. I second.
Okay, thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, so committee members, when I say all in favor, please unmute. And if you're in favor, just say aye or yes.
Aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Great, thanks. Are there any opposed? Okay, great. Thank you very much. So the apparel and textile materials specification is approved. Thanks, Brendan, for that presentation. That was good. Now, Emily, the next specification we're going to talk about is the coating removal products, and Emily Dominiak is going to walk us through.
All right. Can you hear me, Darren?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
Awesome. So this spec is actually a really great example of what you were just talking about with the difference between requirements and encouragements. So it covers coating removal products in almost any setting. It doesn't include degreasers, floor coating removal products, or mechanical coating removal processes. And the requirements of the spec are that entities shall not procure coating removal products that contain methylene chloride or NMP. And then specifically for the 30% of the market reason, we didn't include any other requirements, but the rest of the specification are encouragements that entities should procure a product with either a green seal certification or a UL Eco Logo certification. And both of those, as of now, still have pretty limited uptake. So we also elaborated and said, if there isn't a product that has one of those certifications that meets the needs of the project, then we encourage that they avoid any of the listed chemicals because they're known to be used in coating removal products and are more hazardous than other alternatives that have less market uptake right now. We did receive a few comments on this spec. The only substantive comment was about the reusable packaging language that we also got on the laundry detergent spec, and for the same reasons we decided not to change our standard language, so no changes have been made to the spec.
All right, great. Thank you, Emily. Does any committee member have a question for Emily about the coating removal products specification? No? All right. So does any committee member want to make a motion to approve the coating removal product specification?
John G. moves.
Thank you, John. Is there a second? Thank you, Brendan. All right. So all in favor, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? All right. Thank you very much. The coating removal product specification is approved. And with that, we are actually ahead of the time, doing very well. So now we're going to review some new specifications. We're going to introduce these to the committee, And there'll be a very short presentation, walk you through them, and then we'll ask for you to take a vote to approve it tentatively. So ask for tentative approval, which means that it will then be posted for public comment. And if any comments are received, it will basically have to go to the next time you guys meet, which will probably be Earth Day 2022, in order to approve it for final approval. Just to remind the members, a few years ago, the committee passed a rule that basically, if we don't receive any comments on a specification after it's been posted for at least 90 days, then it automatically becomes final. So there's no need to wait a year on tentatively approved specifications that have been posted for at least 3 months or 90 days and that receive no comments. Okay, so with that, first one we'll talk about is the refrigerant containing equipment, and Brendan is going to walk us through that.
Yeah, thanks, Darren. So this spec comes about as we're working as all of New York State government to lower our carbon emissions and our overall greenhouse gas emissions. So this specification is designed to lower the emissions that are coming from our refrigerant containing equipment. So when you're thinking about chillers, HVAC systems, air conditioners, refrigerators, anything like that, those are usually containing refrigerants in them. And those refrigerants, the traditional kind, have very high what's called global warming potential, or GWP. In many cases, they can be thousands of times more potent than CO2 at trapping greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And so when these leak out of our equipment, they're having a very outsized impact on our climate. And as we continue to lower our emissions from all of our state operations, if we don't do anything about refrigerants soon, they will start to take up a larger and larger percentage of our overall emissions. So the time to act on this is now, and that's why we've put together this specification here. And to put this together, we set up a refrigerant management working group. They're working on a number of other things as well, including a training program for operations staff. But this specification was put together with input from agencies such as DOCS, OGS, SUNY gave us a lot of good input, and others as well, in helping us to draft this in the most implementable way possible. So the specification itself, here's what it does. There's two types of refrigerant containing equipment, if you can think about these and break them down. You've got sealed equipment, which is your smaller units, things like your household refrigerator, a window air conditioning unit. All the refrigerant is contained within the unit itself. So all affected entities were telling them that they need to evaluate options to utilize the lowest GWP refrigerant available. And the reason we are asking them to evaluate their options is because of how fast the market is moving. So if we set a target and we say it has to have a GWP of, say, 700, in 2 years, most of the ones on the market could be down to 100. And we don't want to, as the market evolves, we want to be able to evolve with it so that we're always getting the lowest thing available. So we're requiring them to evaluate their options, and then we're encouraging them to purchase the equipment that has the lowest GWP that meets their form, function, and utility. And then when we get into the unsealed equipment, we're doing the exact same things. The unsealed equipment is your larger things like HVAC units, chillers, big systems on larger buildings that are not completely sealed. You might have tubing or piping that has refrigerants in it, and that's where you can develop leaks. So again, we're requiring them to evaluate options for the equipment and figure out what the lowest GWP refrigerant is for that application, and then we're encouraging them to purchase it as long as it meets their form, function, and utility. And with the unsealed equipment, we're also encouraging them to purchase equipment that contains built-in leak detection systems. This way, instead of having to spend staff time going out and searching for leaks, which you may or may not catch in time if you have this built-in leak detection system, that way you're going to know specifically when the leaks are happening, and you're going to be able to repair them right away. So that's going to minimize the amount of refrigerant that potentially gets in the atmosphere. And it's also going to save money because better charged systems run more efficiently. So we're encouraging them to look for equipment that has that in it as well. We're also asking them to maintain the equipment properly once they have it. So creating and implementing a leak detection program if they have that large unsealed equipment, conducting an annual inventory of refrigerant usage, and that's going to be reported on through the Green New York reporting form system, and creating an agency-wide refrigerant management plan if they haven't already. So on these requirements here that we have, that is where that refrigerant management working group that I mentioned earlier is working. So we're actually sitting down with agencies, we're providing them examples of plans, we're assisting them in writing those. So that way, while we're getting to the point where we're requiring them to do that, we're also holding their hands, we're helping them, we're providing resources. And I want to give a big shout out to OGS and Docs and SUNY that have helped us come pretty far on that. And then also at the end of the life, we want to make sure that agencies are following proper guidance for both unsealed and sealed equipment to make sure that any excess refrigerant is recovered and is not leaked to the atmosphere.
All right, great. Thanks, Brendan. Are there any questions from the committee for Brendan on the refrigerant containing equipment? All right. Does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the refrigerant equipment specification, refrigerant containing equipment specification, which would mean that it would get posted for public comment. It also means that notice will go in both the environmental notice bulletin as well as the New York State Register, alerting the public that these specifications are tentatively approved and they're posted for public comment. So the 90-day clock doesn't start to run until the later of the two postings. So if it goes in the register, let's say a week after the environmental notice bulletin, the 90-day clock doesn't start running until the date that it appeared in the New York State Register, just so the members are aware. And with that, does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the refrigerant spec?
This is Heather Saunders. I'll make a motion. Thanks,
All right,
Jody. Looks like we got a second, too.
This is Jody. I'll second.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. All right, so all in favor of tentative approval for the refrigerant containing equipment spec, please unmute and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Great, thank you. Any opposed? All right, that specification is tentatively approved and we'll post it for public comment. Next one is the general purpose cleaners specification, and Melissa Calabria will walk us through that briefly. And I'll just note up front that this is an update to a older specification. Go ahead, Melissa.
Hi, just want to make sure you can hear me. It was cutting out a little bit.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So, yep, like Darren said, this is an update and revision of the original specification from several years ago. Basically, this update includes new language referring to the recently passed New York State ECL Article 35, restricting the amount of 1,4-dioxane in cleaning products. 1,4-dioxane is a byproduct of the ethoxylation process used to make surfactants and is classified as a carcinogen under the National Toxicology Program. The EPA considers 1,4-dioxane to be a residual concern to the environment. And so we just wanted to add that in to reflect the spec, because all of these products have the potential to have 1,4-dioxane. So let me just pull it up. Oh, it's crazy. Well, I had some definitions at the top, but I can't see them because everything's frozen for me right now. Oh, here we go. Okay. So, yep, so this covers concentrated bathroom cleaners, non-disinfecting and non-sanitizing only. So anything that's not an antibacterial, antiseptic bathroom cleaner. It also includes concentrated carpet, rug, and upholstery cleaners, concentrated degreasers, concentrated floor cleaners, concentrated general purpose cleaners, and thank you, Darren. Concentrated glass cleaners, concentrated enzymatic restroom cleaners, and then also ready-to-use general purpose cleaners and glass cleaners, which would be just the products that are not concentrated and do not require dilution before use. I already pretty much went over the background, but basically the creation of the spec was drawn from the New York State education law defining green cleaning products for use in New York schools, and also alongside the environmentally preferable cleaning products, programs, equipment, and supplies statewide contract. And then, like I mentioned before, it includes 1,4-dioxane in spec language now. So this is just some of the standard setting and certification programs that are included in the specification. And then the actual requirements of the spec are that for general purpose cleaners, all affected entities shall, to the maximum extent practicable, purchase cleaning products that comply with the chemical restriction provisions of Article 35 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law. And then also requires that all general purpose cleaning products shall be certified by one of the following Green Seal or Eco Logo standards. So Green Seal 8, 34, 37, 53, and Eco Logo products that meet Eco Logo 2759, 2791, 2792, and 2795. And the ones that just meet Green Guard are not enough. It should have one of those standards. And then also for concentrated products and dilution systems, agencies shall procure dilution equipment, which is made available free of charge for all concentrated cleaning products, including wall and mobile units. All concentrated cleaners must be a closed-loop dilution control system that meets the following requirements: no open containers. It has to have spill-resistant packaging. It has to be practically accessed during routine use, and you shouldn't be able to have exposure to the concentrated product during use after opening a cap or lid, and it has to contain a backflow prevention system that meets the current American Society of Sanitary Engineering ASSE 1055 standard. And then we have the packaging language that applies to all of the specs.
All right. Fantastic. Thank you, Melissa. Do any members have any questions for Melissa about general purpose cleaners spec? Okay. So I will see, does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the general purpose cleaner specification and have it posted for public comment? Anyone want to make that?
I'll make a
John G.
motion.
moves.
Thank you very much. I heard a couple voices there, so I'll consider that a second.
Second, sure.
Thanks, man. All right, so all members in favor, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
Yes.
All right, any opposed? Thanks very much. That is tentatively approved, and we will post it. The next specification is hand cleaners, hand soaps, consumer antiseptic, hand washes and rubs, and personal care cleansing products. And Melissa Rodriguez from DOT is going to walk us through this.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. So similar to the general purpose cleaners, this hand cleaner personal care cleansing product spec has been updated from its previous specifications. And it was updated due to the fact of the recently Environmental Conservation Law, Article 37, also again similar to the general purpose cleaners about the 1,4 containing products with 1,4-dioxane to try to reduce 1,4-dioxane in these type of products. So generally, just as stated from the general purpose cleaners as well, 1,4-dioxane is a byproduct through the process of when you're making surfactants, and it is classified as a carcinogen under the National Toxicology Program, and as well as the EPA considers it a residual concern to the environment. So generally, overall, the covered products for the specification is in regards to the hand hygiene and personal care cleansing products. So hand hygiene are considered hand cleaners, hand soaps, as well as products that are regulated by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, which are considered the consumer antiseptic hand washes and consumer antiseptic hand rubs. Personal care cleansing products considered under the specification include hair shampoos, body washes, and other similar personal care products. So in regards, again, with the background, and following with guidance from federal regulatory agencies, primarily the FDA, as well as other procurement standards that have been out there, and updating the specification, as well as the new Article 37 Environmental Conservation Law that has passed. Under the definitions, pretty much updating the information, adding about antimicrobial agents as well as antiseptic for a better understanding what those meanings are. And then a reflection of consumer antiseptic hand washes, consumer antiseptic rubs in regards to the FDA over-the-counter drug monogram rulemaking program. Hand cleaners and hand soaps, again, defining what those products are in regards to products that are being used with water to remove organic and inorganic substances from the skin. And then finally, the personal care cleansing products we added to again define that those are products used for cleaning, cleansing any part of the body, such as the hair and skin, such as the hair shampoo, hair conditioner, soaps, etc. And then as we move to the standard setting certifications, primarily the two main ones that are out there in regards to these specifications are the Green Seal and the UL Eco Logo. So under specifications, again, all affected entities shall purchase cleaning products that comply with the Article 37 of the New York State Environmental Conservation Law. And then under the personal care cleansing products, again, we're defining that purchasing should abide by one of the following certifications. And we're also reviewing the third-party certifications, looking to having any updates, which for the Green Seal GS44, they just had an update, so we reflect that for 2020. UL Eco Logo 2845 hadn't had any updates, so it's still reflective of 2013. Under hand hygiene, we combine the hand cleaners, hand soaps, as well as the antiseptic. So again, in regards to hand cleaners, hand soaps, following the criteria containing no antimicrobial agents, and that the parties follow one of the following certifications. Again, the Green Seal, they've updated to 2021, Green Seal GS41. Green Seal GS44, they updated for 2020. And then finally, the UL Eco Logo 2784, they haven't updated it. It's reflective still of 2011. And then finally, the last two, consumer antiseptic hand washes and antiseptic hand rubs. Again, in reflection of the Food and Drug Administration, they had recently updated their monograms. So for under hand washes, that's been updated for 2016, 81 FR 61106, the antiseptic, consumer antiseptic wash final rule. And then for the hand rubs, they updated it for 2019, and that is 84 FR 14847, consumer antiseptic hand rubs. And as well, encouraging the following certifications, again reflective of either the GS41, GS44, or the UL Eco Logo 2783.
Okay. Do any members have any questions for Melissa regarding this specification? Okay. So does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the hand cleaners and soaps, consumer antiseptic hand washes and rubs, and personal care cleansing products specification? Does anybody want to make that motion to tentatively approve that spec?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Ben. Does anybody want to second that?
This
I'll
is
second.
Jody.
Thank you.
Muted.
Appreciate it. No worries. And so, members, all in favor of tentative approval for this specification, please unmute and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you. Any opposed? All right. So the hand cleaners, etc. specification is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. Thanks very much. So the next new specification to discuss is the cookware and bakeware spec. And Connor from DEC, Connor Shea, is going to walk us through.
All right. Can you hear me, Darren?
Yes, I can. Thanks.
All right, great. Yeah, so this is Connor Shea. I'm introducing the spec for cookware and bakeware. So it's a draft spec being presented for tentative approval. So for some background, there are a number of agencies that need to use cookware and bakeware to carry out their operations. However, due to some of the human health and environmental concerns associated with some of the materials, we've developed this spec to help agencies find more environmentally preferable alternatives. So for the definitions, this spec provides several for some of the components and materials that may be found in cookware and bakeware products, as well as for some of the laws and programs that exist to limit our exposure to hazardous substances that may be found in these products. So, you know, we have California Prop 65, which applies to chemicals that may cause cancer, birth defects, and other reproductive harm. There are also Fda Import Alerts, so the U.S. Food and Drug Administration maintains a public list of items that are subject to detention for being in violation of certain standards. So one thing I came across that was of particular concern were ceramic items being imported from certain countries with lax regulations may contain heavy metals in their glazes. Then we also go on to define nanoparticles, non-stick coatings. So these are both engineered materials, non-stick coatings being engineered coatings that are applied to cookware and bakeware surfaces that prevent the adhesion of food and other materials. Now, I want to note that, you know, non-stick properties may also be inherent to the base material to some degree, but for the purposes of this spec, non-stick coating really only applies to those engineered coatings. And lastly, under definitions, we have per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, or PFAS. Next, we have our standard setting and certification programs. So in terms of certification programs, there really were none that I came across that applied in this industry. However, for standards, there are requirements for cookware and bakeware set forth by FDA and requirements for food service equipment and utensils under the New York State Sanitary Code. So these specs would basically complement and build off of those, since both of them essentially look at hazardous materials in food contact surfaces, and you know, specifically the New York State Sanitary Code asks that equipment and utensils avoid using porous materials or anything else that could harbor pathogens. So this kind of builds off of those sort of basic requirements. So now under specifications, so there are a few requirements and a few encouragements. So first, we want purchasers to start off by looking at surplus goods or reconditioning what they have already on hand, and this is to the extent practicable before purchasing any new items in order to minimize the impacts associated with purchasing new items and the manufacture thereof. So then moving on down, when purchasing new items, purchasers are asked to avoid the following. So first, items bearing a California Prop 65 warning or imported items that are on FDA's list of import alerts. Next would be items with PFAS-based nonstick coatings. And last would be items with nanoparticle infused nonstick coatings, especially those containing titanium dioxide nanoparticles. So now, as for the encouragements, affected entities should look for items that have at least one of the following attributes. So first, that they contain recycled content, and this is not possible in all cases, but it may be applicable for items made out of aluminum, cast iron, or stainless steel. And second, we want to encourage purchasers to buy items that comply with the packaging language that's found at the end of this spec. So there's also an encouragement that cooking that regularly involves high acidity foods should avoid certain materials due to the potential for leaching. So that would be unlined copper and unlined aluminum, which are thankfully not too hot on the market. They make up a very small percentage. And for populations with a sensitivity to nickel, stainless steel blends other than 18.0 should be avoided. So the spec also contains some language pertaining to the proper usage and handling during the product's lifetime, as well as an encouragement for take-back and recycling programs at the end of the product's useful life. So that is it for the cookware and bakeware spec.
Thanks very much, Connor. Does anybody have any questions for Connor on the cookware and bakeware spec? Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the cookware and bakeware specification?
I'll make a motion.
Thanks, Brian. Does anybody want to second that?
John G.
Thanks very much. All right. Members all in favor of tentative approval of the cookware and bakeware specification, please unmute and say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? All right. Cookware and bakeware spec is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. Now, Jody Smits-Anderson from DASNY will discuss the lower carbon concrete specification.
Great. Hey, everybody. I find it very exciting that we're getting into building materials with our specifications, and one of the first is lower carbon concrete. I was very pleased to be able to work with a very deep and broad team on this, and I will let me just rattle off a couple of names here while I can, if I can actually pull it up. I worked with, most of this specification is based off of specifications that are already in existence and being used through Port Authority, New York, New Jersey. We also had team members from NYSERDA, DASNY, OGS, the New York City's Mayor Office, and New York City Design and Construction. The specification has also been reviewed by the Concrete Masonry Association and by a structural engineer from Klepperhan and Hyatt. New York DOT also reviewed the draft specification and recommends some implementation guidance At this point, they haven't mentioned any issues with the spec itself. So the specification, just to give a quick background, the materials that we're going to discuss related to buildings are very important because they're very high global warming potential materials. Concrete is extensively used in our world, and it is has one of the highest greenhouse gas emissions burdens of all building materials. We also tend to overspecify the strength in concrete in the industry, and I speak from the perspective of an architect. So this is really important. This specification intends to do a couple of things. One, encourage and call out that we need to be designing the strength of concrete for the purposes for which it's being used. And if you scroll down a little, we'll get into this. It also then goes into replacing the cement with pozzolans. Pozzolans are a type of material that will add strength to concrete mixes, but have lower global warming potential, such as slag and fly ash and silica fume and recycled glass, microground glass. And then lastly, to reduce the amount of cement by reducing the what I would call the liquid matrix, the binder material in the cement mix. So those are the basic approaches in here. What we also did in this, and I'm going to skip around a little, I'm sorry for this. I want to grab my spec here. We included definitions of a couple of things that are very important in the building industry, including EPD, which is Environmental Product Declaration. And that is a declaration that quantifies through a third-party process, through a reviewed process, environmental information on the life cycle of a product and the carbon in a product. So in the specification, we said to start, provide an EPD where available for all batch plant ready mixed concrete. So anything that's mixed elsewhere and brought to the job site, there should be an industry-wide EPD or a batch plant specific EPD. And then we said, and this was a great recommendation from one of our team members from Port Authority, in fact, in instances where an EPD is not available, there is a chart here in the spec that indicates the relative CO2 equivalent per pound of material, so that wise choices can be made as to how to replace some of that cement content. We then talked about mixed designs and limited the amount of Portland cement. Portland cement is the common name for cement in the industry right now. So we limited that content, and then talked about a limit where there's support. For example, when the concrete is below grade. So it's an even tighter restriction. And again, these are coming right from Port Authority specifications that are already in use in the industry. There are qualifiers about any application that requires final finish because the float of concrete is different depending on the cement content. So we acknowledge that. And then we also said that the contractor has some insights into further reducing for applications that do not require finishing. I mentioned pozzolans or supplemental cementitious materials. There are many that are being used in the industry, and we qualified with advice from Port Authority that the microground glass, which would actually be a really good component in our recycling processes, that they're acceptable only for use in non-structural applications and if they align with the ASTM standard that regulates them. This is the aspect about reduction in percentage of binder, and that means that if you use larger aggregates and a mix of sizes of aggregate, that means the stone that's in the concrete, you can actually reduce the amount of binder that's needed, and that will also help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, the embodied carbon. And there are clear specifications about how to do that in this spec. So this spec gets a little more technical than some of the other material specs, but and it should be considered a guidance spec that would then be used to inform the technical spec that's written on any publicly bid project. So this spec would never meet the requirements of a technical spec for bid, but all of the information in here is absolutely viable information that would inform the writing of that technical spec that would have to be project specific. We also looked at CMU and concrete bricks. CMU is concrete masonry units and concrete bricks because that's a prevalent building material, especially in New York State. We've got a robust CMU infrastructure. We also say provide an EPD when available. And there are industry EPDs for concrete masonry units and concrete bricks. And there are also facility specific, depending on mixes. There is a reduced web design, so the little pieces that bridge between the front and the back of a concrete masonry unit. There is a new design that reduces the size of that, so that reduces the amount of cement and embodied carbon. And then there's some qualifiers about using the guidance above in producing those CMU, and that is also encouraged. And then further, those are all the things that are industry normal already, and we're just putting them in a document and saying all of these things should be considered and adhered to. And then we're also encouraging additional aspects. Maximize the amount of supplemental cementitious materials while still meeting the performance requirements. So do all that you can to reduce the cement content. Right sizing structural elements. We quite often make things too big and too heavy for extra, for aesthetic reasons, but also for extra safety factors on top of the safety factors that are already inherent in the process of design. Achieve GHG reductions through use of the concrete as a finish material and avoiding other layers of material. For example, a finished stained concrete floor can reduce the need for glues and additive tile or carpet on top of it. And that's a greenhouse gas reduction approach. Concrete reductions by use of alternate structural components. We're trying to point people toward embodied carbon beneficial items such as mass timber, which is using wood for structural components. And then we mentioned CO2 injection in tandem with additional cement reduction. CO2 injection is cited in current proposed legislation, and it is of great interest to the industry, so we felt it was very important to mention here. It has a rather small reduction potential, but we should be exploring every reduction potential possible. And then we put in the standard take-back recycling language, disposal and packaging. In take-back recycling, we did speak a little specifically about building materials. There's a tendency to buy attic stock. In the industry, at least when I was designing projects, you automatically ordered 10% more of modular components than you needed, just in case. If you ordered carpet tiles, you ordered 10% more. If you ordered paint, you ordered 10% more. If you ordered CMU, you ordered 10% more. That's not realistic anymore. So we're saying limit that attic stock and develop a plan for on-site cutting and on-site use of any overage of concrete mixer. Because if you have a leftover truckload, if you have, for example, an area that you need to have a sub base, it makes most sense to pour that excess there and then reduce the other materials you might need to bring to the site. And that is it for this spec.
Thank you very much, Jody. Does anybody have any questions for Jody about low carbon concrete spec? All right. Well, then I will ask, does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the lower carbon concrete specification?
I'll make a motion. This is Carrie Jane.
Thanks, Carrie Jane. Does anybody want to second that?
I'll second that.
Thanks, Brendan. All right, members, all in favor of tentative approval for the lower carbon concrete spec, please unmute and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay. So the lower carbon concrete spec is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. Thanks, everyone. And now Jody is going to also walk us through a foam insulation specification.
Sorry, I put myself on mute. That was kind of silly. All right. So foam insulation spec, just a little bit on background. It is really important to talk about foam insulations because the blowing agents in foam insulations, and I'm talking about foam boards that are already produced and you buy in sheet form, and also spray applied foam that's spray applied with machines on site. Both of those use a blowing agent that to date has been potentially of a very high global warming potential blowing agent. In Europe, they've transitioned almost entirely to water-based blowing agents, which have a global warming potential very small, even 1 in many cases, which makes it equivalent to to just benign air. But some of ours are in the 1,400 times that range. What's interesting is the industry has moved so quickly over the last 5 to 10 years to address this that we already are seeing available foam boards and spray applied foams that have lower global warming potential blowing agents, and even some water-based are coming into the market. There is so much already in transition, and I haven't found another guidance spec anywhere, so that the team on this didn't really exist, but the work was built on articles and research from Building Green, which is a very influential green building resource that does not take any advertising dollars. It's actually a research and reporting entity, and based on EPA guidance and on information directly from DEC in New York State, as they have a list of blowing agents that should not be used. So that is already in existence, and I just wanted to make that background clear. All right, so for this, the other important aspect to note is that foam insulations are plastic. I'm sorry, I have to tell my son to let our dog out because she's going crazy. Hold on one second. All right, we're good. Sorry about that. So foam insulations are plastic-based. We're not addressing the components of that petroleum-based plastic element. We're just talking about the blowing agents at this point. The other piece is that as we strive for energy efficiency, we are going to be using a lot more of these insulation products. So that is why it is so imperative to talk about these blowing agents. And you can see from the chart here, we've listed many of the common blowing agents, and they range from over 10,000 times the global warming potential of air down to very low, to CO2, which is listed as 1. If you scroll down a little bit more, we should get into the spec itself. So we've defined rigid foam insulations. There are board types. There are 2 types of spray foam insulations. Just to be clear, there's a closed cell spray foam and an open cell spray foam, and we've addressed both of those. Just as in the concrete spec, the first thing we say is provide an EPD. We want to know what's in the material. By asking for that information, we're going to move the market to start to have more EPDs available, and we're going to get the information that helps people identify how to reduce that global warming potential. Eliminate HFC 134A as the blowing agent. That is already possible, easily possible. And aim for preferred blowing agents, including water-based and 4th generation blowing agents. And the best example is HFOs, which is hydrofluoroolefins, which I never say correctly, HFOs. When you have foam insulation products and a lower global warming potential blowing agent is available, within a 25% performance differential, that lower global warming potential product should be specified. 25% sounds like a lot, but when you're talking about a pretty beefy wall, it might be a difference of an inch, a half an inch to an inch in order to bring it up to performance. And quite frankly, why we put this language in is if we have higher global warming potential, it can take decades before the energy savings actually pays back for the carbon burden that was in that foam insulation. So we want to make that point. Entities are also encouraged to look at other aspects of foam insulations, foamed in place products that are made with polyurethane-free materials, foam insulations that use no chemicals of concern. So there are EPA-listed flame retardants that should be avoided if possible, but those are not requirements, those are encouragements. Achieve waste reduction through tighter controls of delivery, storage, overspray, and centralized cutting practices. And then if you scroll down, we'll get to the last of it. As even lower global warming potential blowing agents become available, reduce that. And then reduce use of foam insulations through use of other lower carbon intensive insulations such as mineral wool, cellulose, and hempcrete. So again, we're trying to point to biogenic carbon aspects, materials that actually can help sequester carbon. We talked about centralized cutting area. We talked about if anything's going to be disposed of to document that, and then the standard packaging information. So again, we see this as the industry is already well on its way. This is putting the information into a spec that can inform technical specs in jobs and having all of the goals listed out there so that architects and engineers who aren't typically procuring things in the way that the Green New York specs have done to date can have their technical specs informed by these goals. And that's it.
Thanks so much, Jody. That was great. Does anybody have any questions for Jody regarding the foam insulation specification? Okay, so I will ask if anyone wants to make a motion to tentatively approve the foam insulation specification.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you, Brendan. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So members, all in favor of tentative approval of the foam insulation specification, please unmute and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thanks. Any opposed? All right, so the foam insulation specification is tentatively approved and will be posted for public comment. So last on the agenda is we're calling it the appliances and commercial kitchen equipment, but it's specifications, it's plural. So it's actually 15 individual specifications. We're not going to go through all 15. They're substantially the same. We probably could have done this all as one, but we thought, 10 years from now, if somebody is looking to see whether we have a spec on, dehumidifiers, they might not realize to look at something that's called appliances. So this way, all the pieces of equipment are covered individually, even though the specifications basically say the same thing. So I'll ask for one motion to tentatively approve all of them at the end of this, unless a member has a problem with just one. Then we can entertain any motion that you want. If there was an issue with just one of these pieces of equipment, then we could certainly table one of them or however you want to deal with it. But just so we don't have to go through 15 separate votes, I think it's perfectly appropriate to approve them all as one. They're basically the same. And Heather Saunders from NYSERDA will walk us through them. Heather, why don't you read off the list, if you hopefully have it in front of you, of all 15 that are covered. If you don't, I can pull it up. But and Chloe, why don't you just put up, the first one that you have.
Hey, Darren. Actually, Ryan Moore, who is a program expert at NYSERDA, is going to walk us through these. So I'll turn it over to Ryan.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Thanks.
I'll walk you through it. I don't have the list in front of me, but I can.
So, all right. So I'll read it off just because I have it. So there's air purifiers, commercial coffee brewers, commercial dishwasher, commercial fryers, commercial griddles, commercial hot food holding cabinets, commercial ice machines, commercial ovens, commercial refrigerators and freezers, commercial steam cookers, dehumidifiers, residential clothes dryers, residential dishwashers, residential freezers, and residential refrigerators. And those have all been posted individually on the on the webpage for this meeting, and will all be posted individually. So anyone, when they're up for public comment, could look at all of them individually if they choose. So there we go. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you off.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Darren. So most of you are probably familiar with Energy Star. It's been around for a while and is widely available. So in terms of background, we want to encourage state agencies to purchase or procure Energy Star certified models, which will not only reduce energy use, but reduce energy costs and environmental impacts. Not only is it widely available, but they are also cost competitive with non-certified models. And in terms of efficiency, depending on the product or the appliance, Energy Star certified products are at least 10% more efficient than standard models, but it could be more than that. For instance, Energy Star residential clothes washers or domestic clothes washers use approximately 40% less water and 25% less energy than standard models. And on top of that, everything comes with two price tags, the purchase price of the product or appliance itself and the cost of operating it. So Energy Star helps save money on operating costs. And they also have, many have additional features and improved performance, and they're all third-party tested. So when we put the spec together, essentially we pulled it all from Energy Star, including the definition, and each of the 15 products have a similar format. So with air purifiers, I can't see the whole thing, but this is rather straightforward. I think we provided enough guidance to make it easy for state agencies to procure this equipment, and interested to hear any feedback or questions folks might have.
So any members have any questions about any of the 15, or just a general question about the appliances and kitchen equipment specifications? All right. Ryan, I guess you covered it pretty well. So I will ask, does anybody want to make a motion to tentatively approve the 15 individual appliances and commercial kitchen equipment specifications which will then all be posted for public comment. So does anybody want to make that motion?
I'll motion.
This is Jody. I'll second.
All right, great. Thank you very much. So, members, all in favor of tentative approval for the 15 appliances and commercial kitchen equipment specifications and posting them all individually for public comment, please indicate by unmuting and just say aye or yes.
Aye.
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 Great. Thank you very much. Any opposed? Okay, so those specifications will be posted and are tentatively approved. And we have reached the end of the agenda. And I just want to say thank you very much. That was smooth, and I really, really appreciate your time. I know everyone is busy, and a 2-hour meeting is a big chunk of an afternoon. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to join and be here and participate. And that's it. Brendan, do you have any final words?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everybody. I know we've been in a strange situation over the past year, but we've worked through it. We've worked really well, and the amount of work that went into the specs is really impressive. It takes a lot to get these things to the point of tentative approval, and for the ones that got over final approval, it takes even more. So I just want to thank you for, we haven't been able to meet in person. We've been doing the WebEx, the Zoom, and everything else, and we're still getting the work done, and we're still making the world a better place. So I want to thank you for doing that. And if you haven't already, take a look at the report, flip through it. I think it's a really good way to have an uplifting to kind of fill your spirits again if you're ever feeling a little pessimistic about the way things are going environmentally. But we've got a lot of good stuff we're doing, so let's keep it up, everyone. Thank you for your hard work.
Yeah. Thank you. Hear, hear. So again, thanks everybody, and we'll see you next year, hopefully in person. And that's it. And if you ever need anything, have any questions or concerns about anything going on with Green New York EO4, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Brendan. And have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Darren. Thanks, everyone.
You'll have luck.